عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بسيدنا ومولانا أبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام، وجعلنا الله وإياكم من الطالبين بثأره بين يدي الإمام المنصور المؤيد المهدي من آل محمد. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا، وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا يحيى خذ الكتاب بقوة وآتيناه الحكم صبيا. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second one of Ammar al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. The third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. The discussion concerning the Islamic position on beheadings is without a doubt one of the most important discussions within Islamic law and within Islamic ethics, and indeed one may argue has political connotations until today. You find that since time immemorial, virtually every society and every empire has used beheadings as a form of execution, as a form of punishment in society. Even the world religions, you'll find, all of them within their literature, recognize that one of the methods in which you are able to execute an offender or execute a criminal in society is by beheading them. As in, if one was to examine the Chinese Empire or the British Empire or the Roman Empire or the religions of Judaism and Islam, all of them within their statutes, within their precepts, within their laws, advocate beheadings for different offenses. These offenses, of course, may vary. There may be a beheading for apostasy, or there may be a beheading for rape, or there may be a beheading for adultery, or there may be, for example, beheadings for other offenses in society. For example, even public lewd acts such as drunkenness. After several warnings, one of the punishments, according to the hadiths of the Ahlul Bayt, may even be beheading. So you find, therefore, that within Islamic literature and non-Muslim literature, beheadings is one of the forms of execution. Even within Jewish law, you'll find that there are a number of different forms of punishment for the offender. Stoning, burning, decapitating, strangulation. All of these are different forms of executions within Jewish and indeed within Islamic law. You find, therefore, that this occurred in history, that you find certain personalities in Islamic history were beheaded. They were beheaded, and not just beheaded, their head that had been decapitated from their body was paraded in the streets. On a side note, one wonders, how is it that 50 years after Rasulullah died, was it normal for the so-called best religion on earth, Muslims love to pride themselves that they are following the most beautiful religion. And not just that, the so-called best generation in history. Yes, the generation of the tabi'een and the taba tabi'een. You know, today you have a group of Muslims call themselves as Salaf al-Salih, or the Salafis. Salaf refers to what? That which has preceded or precedes. And therefore they call themselves the Salaf or Salafi because they want to follow the actions of the pious predecessors. Yes, the Prophet, his companions, and the generations after them. Yes, Tabi'een and Taba Tabi'een. As the Quran says, والسابقون الأولون من المهاجر والأنصار والذين اتبعوهم بإحسان رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه. Yes, so you have not just the Muhajirun, Al-Ansar, and the generations after the Ansar. So it's not just the greatness of the migrants or the helpers, but the generations after. You find that those generations, how was it that in 61 AH, Rasulullah died in which year? 11 AH. 61 AH, Imam al-Hussein died. How was it that 50 years after this beautiful religion that we all want to tell the whole world about, how did it become so normal for people not just to parade heads, but to poke the head, to poke the nose, to poke the teeth of the grandson of Rasulullah? And not just of the grandson, of others as well. Imam al-Bukhari in his Sahih, the famous Sahih al-Bukhari, has a very interesting narration. He says, in narration is from Anas bin Malik, yes, from Muhammad son of Hussein. If you want, go online today on Google, type Sahih al-Bukhari. On the search engine, type Ziyad, yes. There's a narration which says that Ubaidullah bin Ziyad had the head of Imam al-Hussein next to him. And that what was he doing with it? He was poking the nose and the mouth of Imam al-Hussein. Now, when we look at this tradition, you find Imam al-Rida has a wonderful hadith. And this is vital in my introduction to beheadings in Islam. Imam al-Rida says, and this is narrated by Sheikh al-Saduq and is authentic according to Saduq's criteria of authenticity. You find that Imam al-Rida alayhi salam says, whoever takes the day of Ashura as a barakah will be in the lowest pits of hell alongside Ibn Ziyad and Umar bin Sa'ad. Why? Because today I have many of our brothers from Ahlul Sunnah and sisters. You'll find on their status on Ashura, they'll say this is the greatest day. This is a blessed day. I give the benefit of the doubt that I say many of them, when they hear the story of Nabi Musa's victory, they say, well, this must be a great day. Yes? Those who've heard what happened to Imam al-Hussein, that Ibn Ziyad and the likes beheaded him, and then Bukhari narrates that they poked his nose and they poked his mouth, the mouth that Rasulullah used to feed. They found it normal. Those who know this and still say that the day of Ashura is a day of barakah, then they will be raised on the day of judgment with Ibn Ziyad, with Umar bin Sa'ad. Yes? But someone comes to me and says, but even in our books it says that it's recommended that you fast on Ashura. Yes, the fast of Ashura may have existed, but it was then prohibited after the fast of Ramadan came down. Yes? If Rasulullah fasted as soon as he entered Medina because he wanted to take from the Jews and their love for Moses, then the prohibition came when Ramadan came down, Shahr Ramadan came down. Someone says, for example, Sayyid Sistani says it's makruh to fast on Ashura, not haram. Yes, because within our traditions in its origin, there was a recommendation. Yes, but then the fasting of Ashura, the fasting of Ramadan came, the prohibition came on the fasting of Ashura. Therefore, what do you find? You find that someone asked the question, how did Islam, this wonderful religion, now when you look at ISIS, and you look at Boko Haram, you see that they will openly claim that we enjoy beheadings like we enjoy killing a chicken and a ram. Yes. The two leaders of Boko Haram and ISIS, Abu Bakr Shakau and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Yes. These two Abu Bakrs teach us great history about terrorism. They remind us that it's normal to slap a woman, it's normal to burn a house. Yes. It's normal to set a house on fire. It's normal to execute. It's normal to behead. That's all you expect from this Abu Bakr Shakau and Abu Bakr Baghdadi. Yes. You found that they come forward and many people ask the question, therefore, does Islam allow beheadings? We can easily reply with the classic reply, apologetic reply. Islam's a religion of peace. That doesn't make any sense. I don't even know what that means, yes? A religion that says it's a religion of peace means that it never stands up against oppression, never stands up against injustice. I don't want to join a religion like that. If I see a dhulm and I stand there as a peaceful observer, I see a woman on the street being attacked, and I just stand there and say, I'm a religion of peace, people will say, then take your religion and hide it somewhere else, yes? But someone says within our traditions, it's clear, in our hadith from the Imams, those who may leave Islam, for example, there is a tradition that says behead them. The one who rapes a woman must be beheaded. For example, the one who is a drunkard must be beheaded. Now, how do we reconcile? Likewise in the Quran, in Surah 8 verse 12 or Surah 47 verse 4, you have this idea of, for example, ضرب الأعناق or ضرب الرقاب, the smiting of the neck or the smiting of the what? Or the cutting of the neck. In the Quran, it says, smite their necks, cut their necks. So ISIS and Boko Haram, both of them come and say, Quran tells us that smite the necks of the opposition, cut the necks of the opposition. And it's true, the Quran says that. There's no need to hide from it. Yes, those who offer the Quran to their non-Muslim friends and they're like, this is the word of God and it's a religion of peace. That's not the line to say. Say it's a religion that has a theological, legal, ethical, social worldview that cannot be separated from its context of revelation. Yes? You can't wear 21st century thinking caps to read a 7th century book. I have to also know that no tradition comes out of a vacuum. If I want to quote the Bible, let's say the first book of Samuel 15:3, I would say the religion of Christianity is barbaric. I could quote the Bible out of context. Smite their necks, cut them, kill them, destroy them. I could quote the Bible out of context. I can't quote the Quran or the Bible out of context because that is not respect to intellectual property. Yes? That property is the property of God. There is a manner. But still, how do we reply? And how do we actually look at how beheading became a norm in Islam? It's in Shia tradition. It's in Sunni tradition. It's recommended within Shia and Sunni tradition. And that's why now when these different movements, Boko, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, they say the Quran and the world of Hadith tell us that anyone who is an oppressor and so on, you must behead them. Let's try tonight to examine the history and laws regarding beheading in Islam in order that we understand the following. Number one, which prophet of Allah was beheaded? And why was he beheaded? For what reason was he beheaded by his community? Number two, when the Prophet recommended his companions to cut the necks off, in which context were they to cut necks off? And is that the best example? Number three, when one of the companions of Rasulullah wanted to parade ahead of someone who died at Badr, what did the Prophet say to him? Number four, if someone, for example, is a drunkard, can I apply the law of beheading? If someone's an apostate, can I apply? And is it only a ma'soom who can apply or a non-ma'soom? And is there space for us to even cancel beheadings in countries like Iran or Qatar or Yemen or Saudi Arabia? Number six, why did Bani Umayyah institute beheadings? And what did Habib ibn Madahir say to Maytham al-Tammar that resulted in one of the reasons in which Habib's head was beheaded in Kufa? And number seven, what exactly happened to the head of Imam al-Hussein after Karbala? And where is the head today? Where was it buried? Let me examine this in order that I dissect this topic in complete depth. Prophet Yahya alayhi salam is the prophet in the Quran who was beheaded. Yes. You find that in English he is known as John the Baptist. His story has unbelievable similarities with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Yes. He was born after 6 months and Imam al-Hussein was born after 6 months. He had an emperor in his time who was in Sham. And Imam al-Hussein had an emperor who was in Sham. Prophet Yahya, as you know, his parents couldn't have children until a very old age. Sometimes in the Quran, there are parents who can't have children until old age. Ibrahim and Sarah, for example, couldn't have a child until old age. That should be a lesson to those who think that a lady not becoming pregnant is a curse from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of our villages in the Shia world, in the Sunni world, wherever, villages are sometimes full of illiterate, innocent people, yes? These innocent people are of the belief that when the girl can't become pregnant, that means there's a curse from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She must have done something wrong, and so Allah therefore has cursed her. Did Allah curse Imam al-Rida alayhi salam? Imam al-Rida for years could not have a child. Some of his own Shia came to him and said, is there any Imam after you or no? You're now in your 40s, you have no child. Did Allah curse Imam al-Rida? No. Allah wanted to see that when I don't give you something, how much faith do you have in me that I can give you something? Yes? Say, I gave you health, I gave you wealth, I gave you education, but there's one area I haven't given you. Listen, there's no one perfect in this world. Yes, all of us are missing one thing in our lives. All of us are tested with one thing. Nabi Zakaria and his wife were tested. They couldn't have kids. And Nabi Zakaria wanted someone to inherit his wealth. Yes. He didn't want to leave the world, and his cousins, who were clearly rebellious, were going to inherit. So he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَأَبْلِ مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ أَهْلِ يَعْقُوبَ. Yes, Ya Allah, provide me with someone who will inherit from me and from the family of Jacob, family of Yaqub, the children of Israel. Yaqub, his other name is Israel. His children are Bani Israel. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with Yahya, He gave him a name no one was given before him, like Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Imam al-Hussein, no one was called Hussein before him. Yes? Hassan, I recall there was a mountain in Arabia called Hassan. But Imam al-Hussein, no one was given the name Hussein before him. Likewise, Yahya, no one was given the name Yahya before him. From a young age, Allah gave him hikmah. He gave him wisdom. Yes? The Quran says, وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْحُكْمَ صَبِيًّا. We gave him wisdom while young. And that was the ayah Imam al-Jawad, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. When Imam al-Jawad became an imam, you found many people saying, how could a 9-year-old be an imam? Yes, an imam must be much older. I can't believe Muslims when they say a leader should be old when you had Jesus speak from a cradle. It doesn't make any sense. But they said an imam must be old. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He appointed Imam al-Jawad as the imam, what was the reply they gave? Did not Allah give wisdom to Yahya when he was young? So why can't Allah give wisdom to a grandson of a prophet greater than Yahya? Yes. Nabi Yahya from a young age had this wisdom. Wisdom, altruism, generosity, and that's why in Christianity they call him John the Baptist. Yes. A precursor to Christ, a helper of Christ. Because in the same Surah Maryam that talks of Yahya, it talks of Christ. This Yahya, later in his life, there was an emperor in the Byzantine world known as what? Herod. Number of Herods, not just one. That Herod had committed a crime. Which crime? That Herod had slept with the wife of his brother. Yes? In Islam, as you know, one of the greatest sins is what? When a person has this intercourse, physical relationship, outside of marriage. There are methods in which a person may have a relationship. Yes? But one of the worst methods which a person can go through in Islam is zina. He had intercourse with whom? With his wife's brother. Nabi Yahya spoke out against him, one narration mentions. Nabi Yahya wasn't just religious. When he saw oppression, he spoke. Because a person, when he sees an emperor, shouldn't just sit down and say, okay, let the emperor continue in the oppression. When he spoke out, they imprisoned him. He said, for what crime have I committed for you to imprison me? He said, you can't speak out against me. I'm the king. If I want to sleep with my brother's wife, who are you to come and tell me? They put him in prison. The wife of the brother had a niece. This niece was a beautiful girl. And the narrations mention that this king was besotted by her. When he was besotted by her, he wanted to be with her. He came to Nabi Yahya, he asked him, is there a problem if I want to be with the niece of this lady? You said I can't be with the lady, but I want to be with her niece. Nabi Yahya said, again, you can't be. This is not allowed in the religion of Allah. So he continued to go against Yahya until he met the lady. She said, listen, you want my niece? Because she made her niece dance in front of him. Yes, and he was infatuated and intoxicated with the drink. And nothing leads to sin in this world like alcohol. Yes. I'm surprised when followers of Ahl al-Bayt come to Majalis and Muharram and drink throughout the year. I don't know. You don't hear that Yazid sat with the drink. It makes no difference to you. Oh, but then it's a reflector of whose side you would have been on the 10th of Muharram. So at that moment, what took place? At that moment, she said to him, you want my niece? You behead Yahya. I want his head, and I want his head placed on a plate. He said to her, listen, Yahya and me, we have our differences, but beheading is too much, because even the most barbaric emperor finds it not easy to behead. Yes, it's not easy to come and bring a knife and cut someone. In Islam, a job which you have to do, but is makruh, is being a butcher. Being a butcher has to be done, but it's makruh, it's not recommended. Why? Because you get used to blood easily. You don't find blood as a problem. Likewise, he said, listen, Yahya is in prison, but I'm not going to behead him. She said, you want my niece, you behead. He comes, takes Yahya, and they behead the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes? They behead him. And when they behead him, not just they behead him, they place his head on a plate in Sham. Those of you who've been to the Darbar in Sham, or to Bazar, or Jami' al-Amawi, would have seen Nabi Yahya's shrine in the middle of the Umayyad palace. Yes? Nabi Yahya was buried there, and subhanAllah, you find that in the same way his head was carried there, Abu Abdullah's head was carried there. That therefore was not the only prophet. Indeed, many prophets. Imam al-Hussein, when he came out on the 10th of Muharram, said, I'm going to die a death of the prophets of Allah. We know only the stories of 25 prophets, but there were so many prophets who the children of Israel had killed. Yes? The children of Israel had killed hundreds upon thousands of prophets in this way. Someone therefore says that if they've been killed in this way, why would Rasulullah allow a Quran? Why would Allah allow a Quran that says in Surah Muhammad, Surah 47 verse 4, smite their necks? Or in Surah 8 verse 12, it says, for example, cut their necks. Surely, if the prophets before you have been beheaded, why would you recommend such an act? Firstly, don't take these verses out of context, yes? I find it interesting when the media brings me these verses. And mind you, the Muslims' lack of relationship with the Quran doesn't help as well. If we had a relationship with the Quran, we'll be able to reply back to anyone. But the problem is, if you ask many, what is the name of Surah 8? They wouldn't tell you. And without that relationship with Quran and Ahlul Bayt, we can't answer the media. Those verses were revealed in a context. Not that Rasulullah was saying, hey, all you new Muslims, whenever you find anyone in the opposition, kill them, behead them. No. These were revealed when? Were revealed in the middle of the Battle of Badr. Yes. It was a context. Not in Medina, I'm walking with a sword. In Mosul, he walks around with a sword, Abu Bakr Baghdadi. Yes. They walk around Sharia state. And they're beheading everyone normal. No, not in the middle of society. Someone walks with a sword. You know, there is a picture of one of them who beheads for ISIS, walking around with a sword 24/7. Yes? Anytime you want someone to behead, he's ready there to behead. Rasulullah, when these ayahs were revealed, it wasn't that he was encouraging that people go and walk in Medina and behead. No, it was for the battle of Badr. Why? Because he was saying that in the middle of this battle, go out. Defend yourself. You know when you give a rallying cry to someone, there's only 300 of you, there's 950 of them. 13 years in Mecca, they've killed your cousins, your family members, and we remain patient. Now it's a rallying cry. No more. Every time they attack us, we've remained silent. Do you know 15 years of his prophethood from 40 till 55? Never once did he say a single word. Only when he saw them attack him in Badr, he said no more. Smite their necks. Go out and fight. And I would hope that my prophet would say this. Someone says, so was that his general message? No. Those who aggress you, you reply back to them. Rasulullah did not begin the battle of Badr. Rasulullah to defend himself. And a religion that defends itself and other religions, no doubt is healthy to society. Why? Because in Surah 22 verse 39-40, Quran said, وَلَوْلَا دَفْعَ اللَّهَ النَّاسِ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَهُدِّمَتْ صَوَامِعْ وَبِيَعْ وَصَلَوَاتٌ وَمَسَاجِدٌ. That the Quran said, if it wasn't for us telling our prophet to rise and defend himself, there wouldn't be a single church, synagogue or mosque in this world. Why care about synagogues? Why care about churches? Because jihad wasn't to defend Islam. It was to defend La ilaha illallah. Yes? Where there is a church is to be defended. A synagogue is to be defended. These are places where Allah is being worshipped. Ali ibn Abi Talib walked past the church one day. He had his companion next to him. The companion looked at Imam Ali and said, I wonder how much shirk is in that church. Imam replied, I wonder how much Allah is worshipped in that church. Okay, Imam Ali, the open-mindedness of Ali ibn Abi Talib, that in that church there are lovers of Allah, lovers of Tawheed. Yes, there's slight theological differences, but ultimately their aim is to get closer to Allah. On that day of Badr, the companions were fighting. Do you all remember? A couple of nights ago, I discussed Abdullah bin Mas'ud in my lecture on Islam and the disabled. We said Abdullah bin Mas'ud killed who? Abu Jahl, yes? He sat on Abu Jahl's chest and he killed him. When the battle of Badr had ended, Abdullah bin Mas'ud revealed something. Abu Jahl, when Abdullah bin Mas'ud sat on his chest, Abu Jahl, as we know, told Abdullah bin Mas'ud, don't kill me, I want someone tall to kill me. Yes, because he was a shorty. Yes, that's all you care about when you die. Then the second thing Abu Jahl had said was what? Parade my head in the streets so people remember me forever. Abdullah bin Mas'ud took the head of Abu Jahl, placed it on a spear, and he walked. He was leaving the battle of Badr. Rasulullah said, come here. So what are you doing? He said, I'm parading his head. We've just killed him. We've achieved victory. He said, you have no mercy in your heart. So what do you mean, Ya Rasulullah? It's Abu Jahl. He said, but your heart has become like that you find it normal to have heads on spears? Our religion did not want to come and fight at Badr. We were defending ourselves. Otherwise, it shouldn't be normal for you Sahaba to put heads on spears, because Rasulullah noticed there was suddenly a flavor of the Jahiliyyah coming, yes? In Jahiliyyah, it was normal for them. If war between the Aus and the Khazraj, get a head on the spear, walk around. Hence why Hind in Jahiliyyah was used to, when she came to the battle of Uhud, eating liver. Yes, some of these were cannibals. Rasulullah wanted that when you see someone dead, your heart breaks, yes? Do you notice the lovers of Ahlul Bayt will never find it normal to behead because they remember Imam al-Hussein. But those who don't have a Hussein, they find it normal because they don't have a story of how sad and barbaric beheading is. Therefore, when these ayahs were revealed, was Rasulullah intending that it was normal to parade heads? Not at all. To behead? No, not at all. Someone says, but then the legal system, then in Khandaq, Ali ibn Abi Talib took the head of Amr ibn Wid. Again, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib did not walk around saying, for example, that let's behead everyone. No, it was in the middle of Khandaq. Amr ibn Wid came out arrogantly. They had been attacking Medina non-stop. Their alliance was Abu Sufyan. The Jews were helping Abu Sufyan on that day. Amr ibn Wid came out. He said, I am Amr ibn Wid al-Amiri. Muhammad Sahaba, where are you? Those who claim to believe in him, come out and fight me. If you kill me, you go to the Jannah that he promises you. And if I kill you, then you go to the Jannah that he promises you. So why doesn't any of you come out? Of course, who's going to come out? Who do you have? Who's going to come out? Retrospectively, they wrote, this guy was brave and he was brave. Where in Khandaq, where was the bravery? Ali ibn Abi Talib on the day of Khandaq, how old was he? 28. He came out and said, Ya Rasulullah, let me fight. And he said to him, Ali said, let me fight. When he came out, he came in front of Amr ibn Wid. Amr ibn Wid said, what's your name? He said, I am Ali, son of Abu Talib. He said, no, I won't kill you. He said, why? He said, your father Abu Talib was a friend of mine. Imam said, but I will kill you because you're an enemy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes? There's no mercy here. You've been arrogant towards us. You've come out, you've entered our land of Medina, and you still want to kill us. He came to him, he looked him in the face, and he said, are you ready? He said, yes. When they began to fight, at the end of the battle, Imam had his head and said, Allahu Akbar, yes? When Rasulullah saw this, Rasulullah, what did he say? He said that the strike of Ali at Khandaq is greater than the worship of every human and jinn until the day of judgment. That strike is not Amir al-Mu'mineen wanting to walk around beheading. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib's heart is the softest heart. He doesn't want to see this. But when your state is being attacked, someone says, but your religion's barbaric. Look at how many beheadings you have. Vietnam wasn't barbaric. Hiroshima wasn't barbaric. Iraq invasion wasn't barbaric. Gulf War wasn't barbaric. As in, everyone has to look at their own history. Yes. I don't want to touch on a sensitive area too much, But when your country is being attacked, there are some who don't mind putting a whole bomb. And there are others who don't mind that, Vietnamese children, what you saw post-traumatic stress disorder, what it does. Islam was doing what you do. You come and attack us, what are we meant to do? But Islam also said, those who have an attack, do not touch them. The woman, leave them alone. The women are sensitive. You shouldn't parade heads in front of them. The children, leave them alone. You shouldn't parade heads in front of kids. A child should never grow in a world where they see heads. In Syria today, you see the oppression that takes place where people, it's normal for these kids to play with heads. It's very normal. You see on YouTube, how many of you seen videos? Kids even beheading. Yes. You found that Rasulullah did not want that. What Rasulullah meant with the Quran, when the Quran said smite their necks or cut their necks, was that the Quran was saying to everybody, there is a context of defense. Other than that, it's not for you to come out and find it normal to behead. Someone says, but in Islamic law, there are many traditions from the Imams about beheading. Yes, these traditions are in a context. Firstly, when it comes to, for example, raping a woman. Yes, in Islam, a rapist is to be beheaded. In Islam, you find the rapist is to be beheaded. Of course, if that rapist is not someone who's insane, there's a law for insanity. That rapist is not somebody who doesn't know the laws. There are conditions, but in Islam, the rapist is to be beheaded. You find, likewise, when it comes to the one who's drunkard in the streets. Once drunkard, there's a warning. A second time drunkard, there's a warning. A third time drunkard, then there is a punishment. Someone says, beheading, isn't that barbaric? Not at all. You find that the context of the time is important. In those days, beheading was what? Was normal. You went to Rome, you went to Greece. It was seen as being normal. What is it normal now? No. So therefore, can someone cancel beheading? This is an important debate. Why? Because you found a country like Saudi Arabia will not annul beheading until today. Saudi Arabia, which I think everyone's trying to make a clamor that they should be in the Human Rights League, yes? The power of oil. You find that there is a clamor for them to be in the Human Rights League, but you find that at the same time, what's clear is that beheading is still there. Iran cancelled beheading. Yemen cancelled beheading. Qatar cancelled beheading. Someone said, but how can you cancel if the Imams of Ahlul Bayt say that you can behead? Firstly, an Imam who's ma'soom, that's a different situation from a non-ma'soom, yes? I see someone who's drunkard in the streets now. I'm not in power for me to come and say that that person should be beheaded. On the contrary, we should sit with them, we should talk to them, advise them. Alcoholic type therapies, in those days, that was the way society was. Whereas today, no. That's why I remember Ayatollah Khomeini, may Allah bless his soul, and Ayatollah Bujnurdi had a discussion about stoning the adulteress in Iran. Ayatollah Khomeini felt that stoning the adulteress had to be implemented in Iran. Ayatollah Bujnurdi said that wait, firstly we have a principle that Islam, there should be no harm on the image of Islam. That's a major principle in Islam. That there should be no harm on the image of Islam. If there is an act that you're performing where there is a harm on the image of Islam, you should stop performing it. I know there are certain people who turn around and say that no, we're always going to be attacked. It's not your religion, so keep your mouth quiet if you don't mind. This is the Risala of Rasulullah. Don't you come and tell me about what you think. If you know there is an act which is destroying the image of Rasulullah, then stop the act. Stop the act. If I see that there are certain acts like stoning the adulteress, I can see on television, that this is causing harm to the image of the religion. Ayatollah Bujnurdi said to him, he said to Ayatollah Khomeini, if the hadith says that half of her body should be under the ground and the other half should be above the ground, maybe Allah wanted us not to stone and kill, but to try and let her find a way in which she could leave. Yes. That Allah didn't say kill her straight away. He said half of the body should be under. The other half should be above. And that's why you found that Iran, taking this discussion on board, decided that there are certain punishments in Islam. Not that they should be annulled, but there is a time and a place for them. In fiqh, we have a type of fiqh which is known as jamid, which means it may have been part of the social milieu at the time, but today it has no use. Slavery, you found, was normal in those days. Today, abolish slavery, yes. Someone says, why did Rasulullah abolish slavery? Because Rasulullah, if he lets all the slaves out in the middle of society, then you find that these slaves won't. You find that these slaves will not know where to go. You ever seen the film Shawshank Redemption? When he came out of prison, he felt that prison was home, yes. And likewise, you couldn't abolish straight away. Likewise, when it comes to this area of beheading, there was a time, a context, whereas today, Iran decided that there has to be a cancellation. Iran decided that this beheading is not conducive. And your Iran or your Saudi, the world looks at you, thinks, what is this medieval ways, yes? Is there no better way? There are. Maybe put them in prison and have a reform program. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib used to let out prisoners on the day of Eid. Yes, so they go meet their families and also send teachers to them to sit with them and talk with them. So did our scholars decide that that beheading of the 7th century remains until today in fiqh? No, there are scholars who say it had a time. And number two, an imam administers this. Yes, in the theory of wilayat al-faqih, the guardianship of the jurist, according to Ayatollah Khomeini, has a wilaya which is mutlaqa, which means a wilaya which is absolute in the absence of the 12th imam. Whatever is the authority of the imams is the authority of the jurist. Whereas you find the other ulama, they say, no, say only a ma'soom can administer beheadings. Only a ma'soom can administer hangings. I could hang someone and commit dhulm against them, yes. As in, may Allah never show you a day where you hang people normally and later you find out there's dhulm. And I'm sad to say it, but in the early years of the revolution, there's no doubt that there were people hanged for the wrong reasons, yes. And yes, later on, there may have been people asking for forgiveness, but in those early years, there were people who were hanging. There was a hanging judge, someone they called him the hanging judge. And you find therefore that alhamdulillah, slowly, that type of context v text debate has now moved on. Therefore, this area is an important legal area because sometimes our youth say our fiqh is not modern. No, the mujtahids are trying their hardest that when they see beheading, yes, it may have been normal in China, in Rome, in Britain, wherever, but now in the year 2015, someone says, well, why can't we scrap other areas then? Because if you can scrap that area, you can scrap other areas of law. No. If you have within the wording that a law is absolute, then that's absoluteness is from Qiyamah, is from the day it was halal until the day of judgment. Halal Muhammad is halal until the day of judgment. Haram Muhammad, haram until the day of judgment. However, if you don't have the terms of absoluteness, and these are all studies within the Arabic of the hadith, these are all studies within the syntax and morphology, and even within the principles of fiqh. So what do you find? You find, therefore, it was in the books of hadith, but it doesn't mean you just pick out a hadith and say, that's it, we behead everyone. There is a time and there is a place for the usage of such hadiths. Who therefore made beheading normal? Because someone says, Imam Ali said, if I die from one strike of Ibn Muljam, then you strike him once. Imam did not say mutilate his body, yes? Imam said, Ibn Muljam, if his strike kills me, you strike him one strike and do not mutilate his body. For Rasulullah did not like to see even the rabid dog mutilated. Yes, Ibn Muljam's body was taken by the people. They took his body and they burnt his body. Him and Qatam's body were both burnt. But Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, Imam al-Hasan were not the ones. They said, no, they said qisas, yes? One for one. Bani Umayyah were the ones who made the beheading and the parading of the heads normal. Why? Understand these reasons. The first reason they did it was, why was it normal for some to get ahead? It's not easy. You imagine you've killed someone, and there are many in this world who have killed, yes? But they don't stick the head through a spear and walk around with it and joke. That is the lowest of the low. Yes. Why then did Bani Umayyah and their soldiers find it normal to do such a thing? Firstly, because you would get paid for doing such a thing. There was good money, fantastic money. For every head, 100 dinar. Yes. Imagine someone comes to you and you're poor in this time, says, listen, every head that you behead, what do you think is happening, by the way, in Syria and Iraq at the moment? What do you think is happening? Tell the person, listen, I'll give you $500. Where are you from? He says, I'm from Uzbekistan. I'm from Tunisia. I'm from Chechnya. I'm from Palestine. I'm from God knows where, Saudi. Said, here's $500, $1,000. We'll look after your family. The more Shia you kill, the more Jannah awaits you. Yes. Likewise at that time, and it was narrated beautifully in a conversation between Maytham al-Tammar and Habib ibn Mudahir. Yes. Habib ibn Mudahir, Maytham al-Tammar were walking one day. Maytham looked at him and Habib looked at Maytham. Habib said, Maytham, it's as if I see a person selling dates in Kufa. And it's as if I see that someone crucifies him while he's praising Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Oh Maytham, are you ready for that day? He said, of course I'm ready. You know, Maytham used to water the tree where Imam told him he'll die. And he'll water it. Why? He said, you were created for me and I was created for you. Maytham al-Tammar then looked at Habib ibn Mudahir. He said to him, it's as if I see a man with a reddish complexion. Habib had a reddish complexion, whose head will be paraded in the streets of Kufa. 100 dirhams will be the cost of the payment for the person who parades it. Are you ready for that day? He said, I'm ready for that day. They went to Rushayd al-Hajari, great companion of Imam Ali. They came to him, they said, Rushayd, have you heard how crazy Habib and Maytham have become? He said, what do you mean? Said Habib tells Maytham, are you ready for a day you're going to be crucified on a tree for your love of Ahlul Bayt? Because Ali ibn Abi Talib used to tell his close companions about what will happen in the future. The Hawariyun of Ali ibn Abi Talib, disciples, he would tell them, are you ready? Will you ever leave me? Will you suborn me until the day you die? Even if I tell you you'll get crucified or you get beheaded? So they said to Rushayd, have you heard how crazy Habib and Maytham have become? He said, in which way? Said Habib says to Maytham, are you ready for crucifixion? And Maytham said to Habib, that are you ready for a day your head will be paraded in Kufa for everyone to see? And then Rushayd looked and he said, did they not add that Habib's head will be paid by 100 dirhams for it to be paraded? But people thought he's as crazy as them. Look at Ali ibn Abi Talib's 3 companions in unison in their mind. You're telling me they're crazy? Let me add you the story. Let me tell you what will happen. In other words, firstly, Bani Umayyah, you would get paid handsome sums if you took a head, beheaded, and paraded in the streets. That was the first reason. Second reason was to show off your empire. Yes. If you want to know how powerful we are, look at our heads. Look at what we've done. And that's why when they, for Ammar ibn Hamaq al-Khuza'i, great companion of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, unbelievable companion. You want to see staunch Ali ibn Abi Talib? Hujr bin Adi, Ammar bin Hamaq al-Khuza'i, Maytham al-Tammar, Malik al-Ashtar, Uwais al-Qarani. These are staunch Ali ibn Abi Talib. He was beheaded, they took his head around. Normal, not like, you normally incarcerate cannibals, yes? Or you incarcerate people who take heads around. If now we saw someone who takes the head around, you'll be like, what's that? And the sadness is Islam on YouTube today is what? Heads. And normal beheadings, I'm beheading for the sake of Allah and Rasulullah. Yeah? Same Bani Umayyah. Anyone who didn't believe our majalis, now our majalis are showing Karbala. I don't need to give lectures anymore. Yes? These clips are telling you what happened. They show off Ammar bin Hamaq, normal. Any of you want to know how powerful we are? We're showing off. That was the second reason. The third reason was what? The third reason was to instill fear in the people. Yes? You think you're going to mess with us, Bani Umayyah? Look what we've done to Zayd, the son of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. They hung his body naked on a tree. And with others, they would take their bodies. With Muhammad, son of Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr had a son called Muhammad. Abu Bakr died. Muhammad was a couple of years old. Imam Ali married his mum, Asma bint Umais. Muhammad was brought up by Imam Ali. Yes. This Muhammad, son of Abu Bakr, you know what Bani Umayyah done to his body? Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As has a huge mosque in Cairo. Amr ibn al-As has a huge mosque in Cairo to honor his greatness as a Sahabi of Rasulullah. Yes? Amr ibn al-As ripped open a carcass of a donkey. He killed Muhammad bin Abu Bakr. He put him in the donkey, stitched the donkey and burnt it. The poet says, the Jordanians are unhappy when their pilot is burnt. Let them look in their history and think about who they praise, for history comes back to burn you. So you find that it happens, that if you're going to try and look at their history, the third reason was fear. You mess with me, this is what happens to you. The fourth reason was what? The fourth reason is important. Spread the body parts so the person has no grave for people to visit. It's an important reason, because what you would do if the head's in one place and the body's in another, people won't know where to go ziyarah. And the Umayyads knew the power of Shi'at al-Muhammad is ziyarah. Yes. They knew if that body becomes a central place, thousands will convene there. So what do? You behead, you put the head in Sham, and you put the body where? You put the body, for example, in Karbala. Why? Because that person who's going ziyarah will not know where to go. If the body is with the head, then people will all convene there. You see now in Arba'een of Imam al-Hussein, 24 million people in one place. Yes. Why 24 million? Had Imam al-Hussein's head been everywhere? In the one narration, there's different opinions. Some say his head was in Asqalan. Yes. Others say his head was where? Others say Cairo. Others say his head's where? Sham. No, his head is in Karbala with his body. Imam Zain al-Abidin brought back the heads on the 40th. And when he placed the head with the chest of Imam al-Hussein, he placed the head with the body of Imam al-Hussein. Yes. And the famous hadith, what does it say? He heard a voice as soon as he put the head back with the body. Some of our youth may not understand this. They may turn around and say, well, what's this? Imam al-Hussein is dead. How could suddenly a voice come? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives ma'ajiz, miracles to prophets, and He gives karamat to the awliya. Yes? One of the karamas of Imam al-Hussein, attested to not just by Christian priests, but also by Imam Zain al-Abidin, is that his head spoke even after Karbala. Yes? The narration says that when Imam Zain al-Abidin placed the head back with the body, he heard a voice from the mouth of his father. The baby placed him on my chest. Yes? The 6-month-old baby placed him on my chest and softly placed his neck on my neck. And then he says, I heard my father say, the heat of Harmala's arrow still hurts me. Yes. So they placed the head, they placed the baby on the chest, Ali al-Akbar by the feet. The head of Imam al-Hussein never was where? But the head of Imam al-Hussein ended in Karbala, but began elsewhere. Yes? Where did they begin with the head? First thing, they began doing what? They began by sticking his head on a spear. And they stuck Akbar's head on a spear. And they stuck Abbas's head on a spear. 16 to 18, according to my research, of the companions' heads were on the spear. There may be other historians that give more numbers. So they put them on the spear, and even the 6-month-old baby. You know what they did? With the 6-month-old baby, the narrations mention, Imam buried him when he came back with him. Later, Umar bin Sa'ad ordered the soldiers, dig your spears in each part of Karbala until you take the baby out. So then after Karbala, they placed the head on the spear. And when they placed the head on the spear, the ladies of Al Muhammad on a night like this. Imagine how difficult it was. Layla seeing Akbar's head. And Qasim, his mother, Ramla, she sees his head. And Rabab sees her husband's head. She sees her baby's head. Yes. They had to see, and that's exactly what they did purposely. First, to show fear to the people of Kufa. You mess with us, that's what happens to you. Secondly, big money involved. The quicker you could get it to Yazid, the more money. Yes. Thirdly, show off the empire. We are the most powerful. We are Bani Umayyah. And our grandfather Abu Sufyan promised we'll win one day. Yes. And so what happened? They took these heads. On the 11th of Muharram, they reached Kufa. They stayed in Kufa for a day, one day. Then they set off for Sham, 12th of Muharram. They reached Sham. They stayed in Kufa for 8 days until the 20th of Muharram. And then they set off for Sham. They reached Sham on the 1st of Safar. Along the way in Kufa, you find that they would show off the heads everywhere. And there'd be people coming and asking. People were partying and they were wondering what's going on, this is great. And then one person would say, isn't that the face of Rasulullah in front of me? Yes. And others would say, I remember one hadith mentions one mother, there was a group of ladies in Kufa, And one of them turns to the other. She says, they're looking at the face of Akbar. Yes? And one mom looks at the other and she says, look how beautiful he is. I hope his mother didn't see him die. Allahu Akbar. Yes? So all these moms were seeing, yes, they were seeing this. Some people became sad for Al Muhammad, so they would come to young Sukaina and they would say to her, look, here's some sadaqah for you, here's some food. And Bibi Zainab would say, we don't take sadaqah, Al Muhammad. And then when she say, we Al Muhammad, people would be like, are you Al Muhammad? Yes. This is the family of Rasulullah. People would be in shock. But it was a message. You're in shock, you're not in shock. Ibn Ziyad would have the head of Imam al-Hussein, as I said, Bukhari narrates, and he would play with the nose and mouth of Abu Abdullah. He'd stick and poke him, yes. And he'd look at Zainab and he'd say to her, how do you view what happened in Karbala? And she replied, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I saw nothing but beauty in Karbala. It's the most powerful answer in Islamic history. What would you reply? If your brothers and uncles and everyone was killed, what would you say? You say it's beautiful? Because sometimes us in our communities, one thing goes wrong. La'na on him, la'na on her. I hate dunya. I hate this. Relax. You've not seen Karbala. Why are you complaining? Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I saw nothing but beauty in Karbala. Ibn Ziyad, what? You think you're going to rattle me? I know this game better than you know it. Yes. And they paraded, and in the night time, they would put them in the ruins of Kufa. Night, darkness, the daughters of Al Muhammad in Kufa. Yes. One of them screaming out, where is my father? And another calling out, where's my uncle? And the other one calling out, where's my baby? Yes. All of them calling out. Then after that, what did they do? They took the heads from Karbala, Kufa, towards Sham. In some places on their way, the people would pelt the heads with stones. They don't know whose heads these are. Other places, no, they would stop by a monastery. There was a priest there, and they came to him. Shimr bin al-Jawsh was trying his hardest to get the head to Yazid quick because the money was great. Umar bin Sa'd was trying his hardest to get the head quick to Yazid because the Ray was waiting for him. They stopped a monastery, priest came out, said, where are you from? They said, listen, we need a night here to sleep if you don't mind. We're on our way to Sham. He's like, okay. And he's like, what are these heads? And they said to him, these are the heads of rebels, they're troublemakers, so we beheaded them according to Islamic law. He said, okay, no problem. As they were leaving, it became clearer the heads for him. He was looking, and he saw one head with light shining from it. He came towards the head, yes. But the head was full of blood. And so he came and he began to wash the head. And then he said, saw the head and he began to cry. He said, I ask you, in the name of Jesus and his mother, tell me who you are. And there was no reply. Then he said to him, I ask you in the name of Muhammad and his daughter Fatima, tell me who you are. Says at that moment, I heard a voice say to me, if you think the companions of the cave were a sign from Allah, then know that I, Hussein, am the greatest sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes. And at that moment, he went and he washed the face of Abu Abdullah. And he himself, when Ibn Ziyad said, why do you want this head? Because he said to Ibn Ziyad, I want this head for one night. Ibn Ziyad said, why this head? He said, listen, you're staying in my monastery. Let me have the head. He washed it. The next day, he said to Ibn Ziyad, take me and my wife with the heads. He said, you're a Christian priest. He said, no, this person is a saint of God. Yes. That's not a normal face. Yeah. So they joined them. They got to Yazid in Sham. When they got to Yazid, as they were entering, they purposely placed Abbas's head in front of Zainab. And they placed Hussein's head in front of Zainab. And they made them all enter. Kulthum said to Shimr, one favor please, don't let us enter with the heads in front of us. Don't you have any respect? He said, you'll enter and the heads will be in front of you. She said, don't let us all enter from one gate. We're not used to men staring at us. Yes. And he said, all the men will stare at you. Imam Zain al-Abidin says, when we were walking, the heads were in front of us, my father's head, Abbas's head, Akbar's head. And he said, I saw men come and poke my auntie Zainab with their spears in her chest. Yes. These are in the maqatil. If you want, you can go and do your research in the maqatil. Yes. And he said, I heard a man say, these are the children of the man who defeated you at Khandaq and Khaybar. Attack them. And that night, Yazid took the head of Abu Abdullah. Yes, he took the head, he placed the head with him. And when he placed the head with him, that night, the narrations mentioned, there was a daughter of Hussein. She was in the ruins of Sham. She hadn't seen her father for a long time. The narrations mention that night she woke up screaming. What does she say? What does the Sukayna Ruqayya say? Yes? At that moment she called out. She said, I want to see my father, Abu Abdullah. Yes? Because they had told her that your father's on a journey. She said, I want to see my father, Abu Abdullah, please. When the scream was so loud, Yazid woke up. When he woke up, he said, what's that scream? They said to him, Hussein's daughter wants to see his head. He said, very well, then take the head to her. They covered the head in a bowl. It looked like they were bringing some lunch or dinner. Yes. Sayyidah Zainab was trying to calm her down. They brought the head. As soon as they brought the head, there was a bowl on it. She said, I'm not hungry. Why have they brought me food? Yes. They removed the head. She saw the holy head of Abu Abdullah. Yes. She fell on the head. What did she recite? She said, oh father, who severed your head from your body? Yes. That was the first line. The second line, oh father, who put that blood on your beard? Yes. Oh father, who is there for the orphans after you? Yes. At that moment, Sayyidah Zainab came to her. She came to her and she said to her, she saw her faint. She said, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. They went to wash her body. The nurse came to Sayyidah Zainab and said, I can't wash her body. Sayyidah Zainab said, why? She said, was the girl ill when she died? Sayyidah Zainab said, no, she wasn't ill. She said, then what's all the blue marks on her body? Allahu Akbar, yes. What's the blue marks? Imam Zain al-Abidin said, that's not an illness. That's the whips of shimmer on her body. They had absolutely whipped the children. One by one. Yes. One by one they took the children of Abu Abdullah. Yes. But to add insult to all of this injury, Ya Sahib al-Zaman, may Allah give you sabr in what I'm about to recite. There's one particular narration, it breaks the heart. They took the kafila where? They took them into the court of Yazid, Zainab and Kulthum. They took Zainab and Kulthum. They had ripped their hijab off their faces, yes? Al-Muhammad, their woman, used to cover their hair. That was never removed. But what was removed was the hijab of the face, yes? That was ripped off, yes? The authentic narrations, they say that the hijab of the face was ripped off. That covering, they used to wear a number of layers, they ripped it off. Zainab had never known a man who'd look at her face. Yes. She was sitting there, the men were staring at her. So that's Ali's daughter there. Yes. Where was Ali on that day? Yes. That's Kulthum, one of Yazid's servants, and she went to Yazid's wife, Hind. Yes. That Hind, she was young when she had served Imam Ali in Medina. And she used to see Abbas when he was young. She used to see Hussein. She used to see Zainab. And when Imam Ali died, she was in the house of Imam al-Hassan. She used to serve. Then Muawiyah forced her, after Imam Hassan was poisoned, Muawiyah forced her to marry Yazid. So for years, she hadn't been to Medina. She hadn't known about the family in Medina. She was in her room. The servant came, said to her, oh lady, she said yes. Said, Yazid wants you to come out. Said, why? Said, there's a group of rebels. They're parading them. He wants to show his power. She said, the rebels are from where? She said, from Karbala. She looked at her and she said to her, okay, I'll get dressed. She got dressed. She got in her attire. They used to cover themselves. Yazid, nifaq in public, hijab and everything. And private, nothing. She covered herself, she went into the throne, she sat down. As soon as she sat down, Sayyidah Zainab looked to Kulthum. Now the throne is high, Zainab's on the ground, she has chains around her wrists and her neck. Yes. So at that moment, Zainab looked at Kulthum. She said, Kulthum said, yes. He said, do you recognize her? She said, no, who is she? She said, do you remember Hind? Used to be in our house. She said, yes. She said, that's Hind over there. Hind, at that moment, she looked towards them. She saw them whispering to each other. She didn't recognize Zainab, yes? What happened to Zainab after Karbala that she didn't recognize her? She looked at them whispering to each other. She looked towards them. She said to them at that moment, she said, excuse me, where are you people from exactly? Because there was a distance between them, so she couldn't see them properly. She said, where are you people from? Sayyidah Zainab looked at her. She said, we are from Medina. Yes. Take your hearts to Zainab's brother Hassan in Medina. Tonight we give this to Imam al-Hassan, yes, to Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Sadiq, alone in Medina tonight in Jannat al-Baqi', yes? She said, we are from Medina. At that moment, she left her throne, she sat on the ground. Sayyidah Zainab said, why are you sitting on the ground? What's wrong? She said, out of respect for the people of Medina. She said to her, I used to serve in a house in Medina. She said to her, may I ask you about that house? I don't know if you know them. Allahu Akbar. She said to her, go ahead and ask me about that house. She said to her, I want to ask you about the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib in Medina. Allahu Akbar, yes? She said to her, I want to ask you about the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Sayyidah Zainab looked at her and she said to her, go ahead, ask me about anyone of that house. She said to her, may I ask you about Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas? Where is he now? I beg you, tell me. Yes. She looked towards her. She said, you're asking me about Abbas. Look at that spear over there. There is the head of Abu al-Fadl. Yes. She looked towards her. She said to her, may I ask you about another member of that house? She said to her, yes, go ahead, ask me. She said to her, may I ask you about Abu Abdullah? Where is Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam? Yes, what does Zainab say? She said to her, if you ask me about Imam al-Hussein, there is the head of Abu Abdullah. Yes. At that moment, Hind couldn't believe what she was hearing. Yes, she was stunned. She said to her, I want to ask you about two of the women of that house, Kulthum and Zainab al-Hashimiyya. Yes, I want to ask you about Kulthum. I want to ask you about Zainab al-Hashimiyya. Yes, she specifically said Zainab al-Hashimiyya. She looked towards her at that moment and the tears were flowing from Sayyidah Zainab. She said to her, if you're asking me about Kulthum, there is Kulthum sitting next to me. If you're asking me about Zainab al-Hashimiyya, I don't know who Zainab al-Hashimiyya is. What do you mean you don't know? She said, but if you're asking me about Zainab al-Masbiyya, listen to her words. But if you're asking me about Zainab the prisoner, then I am Zainab the prisoner of Sham. Yes. The narrations mention that at that moment Hind ran out of the court, her hijab fell off her. Yazid looked towards her, he said to her, Hind, go and wear your hijab now. She said to him, you ask me about my hijab. How about the hijab of the daughters of Rasulullah? You ask me about my hijab. How about the hijab of the daughters of Fatima al-Zahra? Who is there to look after their hijab? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.